hop on in. Sorry, you can probably hear the gardener outside now. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at our next professional growth series. Today, we're going to be talking about empowering collaboration. So thank you again so much to DeVry University and to Aaron and Laura for being here and hosting us today and talking us through this really important topic. We will also be raffling off a couple of Diamondbacks tickets again. And as people trickle in, I'll go ahead and mention that in the chat again as well. And we'll go ahead and announce the winner of those two Diamondbacks tickets at the end of the webinar. But as usual, we just want to remind everyone to please feel free to use the chat and to use the Q&A, raise your hand if you have a question. We really, really love engaging with all of our attendees on these webinars. So feel free to put any comments or questions in there. And like I said, raise your hand if you'd like to unmute. But I think that's it on our end. We're going to have this webinar recorded. As you guys can see the disclaimer on the first slide, and we'll have that recording sent out in our post-event email. So be on the lookout for that. I think that's all for us. So Aaron and Laura, you guys can go ahead and take it away. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nicole. And welcome everyone. And thank you for joining us again. Laura and I are extremely excited to be with you all this morning and share this exciting workshop on empowering collaboration. You will again see some of the themes discussed in our previous workshops from communication and managing workplace conflict. And it always amazes me to see how these subject matters tend to tie together to create a holistic picture for effective communication in the workplace, and how it all impacts us individually and our businesses. Laura, do you have any insight to share before we get started?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aaron. I think you're right. There's so much overlap. It all boils down to communication. In today's presentation, we're talking about collaboration, working together, right, in the workplace, and better ways to go about it. And the nuance here with this presentation is we're going to be talking about specific generations and the four, potentially 5 generations that are in the workplace today, and how not only does one's generation influence, maybe communication patterns, but also just approaches to work, right? Your approach to work-life balance, your approach to leveraging technology, to using technology for communication, in fact. Okay, so all of those things that go into, kind of making us part of a certain generation can impact that approach, that style, and those communication patterns. So we're going to go, we're going to describe the generations. We have an exercise. We look forward to your participation. We would love to hear from you in chat as we proceed. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Thanks, Laura. So can you all think of a time when poor communication with someone from another generation had an impact on a project or a deliverable at work? More and more often, we are being asked to effectively navigate within a multi-generational workforce. So today we're going to participate in a session about generations at work, as we previously stated. And this workshop is designed to help you better relate and collaborate in your work environment, one in which you find yourself working with or managing older coworkers with more experience than you, or alongside younger workers who may differ in style or who are just new to the workforce. Today, we're going to talk about how we can collide less and connect more by examining what each generation brings to your workplace and how you can best relate to them. First, by defining the different generations, as Laura mentioned a moment ago. Second, we'll determine your work generation and explore whether you relate more to your own generation or to a different one. Third, we'll discuss some of the main differences between generations and explore how to effectively collaborate with, manage your coworkers, no matter what their generation. And then fourth, we'll discuss effective ways to work with each generation based on their values, ideals, preferences, and attitudes. And then finally, because some of you may have or currently are thinking about education as a way to enhance your skill set to grow with your organization, we'll take a little bit of time at the end to share some of the benefits of attending DeVry University. But when you leave here today, we will have identified the 4 generations and their differences, as well as develop a strategy to better communicate and effectively manage your diverse team. The goal is to create a successful, harmonious work environment. I would also like to reinforce today, just as Laura mentioned, that this workshop is about you. Your experience, your participation, and your personal best practices will enhance everyone's experience today. So please, please, please share as much as possible in the chat or unmute yourselves and share it right away. Now, let's start by asking the question, what are the main differences that affect people's behavior at work? Please share some of your examples and your own experiences and observations in the chat, or unmute yourselves and share it out loud. I know for me, I was telling Laura yesterday while we were doing our last review of this presentation that working in retail and going into management at the age of 21, I was managing colleagues that were, had been in the workforce much longer, doing the job much longer than I had, and our communication just really clashed because of our generational differences. They were set in their ways and had been doing things a different way, and they were looking like, who is this young girl coming in here trying to tell me how to do things? But again, through this workshop, we'll learn more about how we can communicate with people with more experience or that have been in the workforce far longer than we have. Any other insights out there? Well, we'll continue anyway. Whether you are working with or managing people both older and younger than yourself, you've probably noticed stark differences in communication styles, as I just mentioned. Work ethic, the way your coworkers deal with praise or criticism, and even cultural attitudes. You probably noticed differences in some of these areas, such as in communication styles, work ethic, the way your coworkers deal with praise or criticism, and even cultural attitudes, as I just mentioned. For communication styles, some generations are more reserved, while others tend to favor more collaborative and in-person means of interacting. With interaction with management and leadership, some prefer a coaching style of management more than the traditional top-down authoritative approach. I know sometimes during interview processes, the supervisor will ask the employee, how do you best communicate or how do you prefer to be managed? In response to criticism and praise, some generations believe that no news is good news, while others like feedback and prefer it delivered in real time. Team player versus being independent. Some enjoy greater interaction and teamwork, while others learn to be self-reliant, and some tend to be more self-centered. Your project management style, multitasking versus questions authority, and crusade causes. Others tend to be more disciplined and task-oriented. And then work-life balance, which is a huge, huge, huge topic now in the workforce. Some generations tend to be more motivated by the job itself, whereas others seek more flexibility and personal freedom. While a diverse workforce can be a source of conflict and misunderstanding, it can also be a positive thing. And we're going to work today on identifying those positive differences and how it can go and positively impact the workplace. Good point, Laura. We probably have experienced communication gap without realizing it. So interesting enough, 85% of enterprises agree that diversity results in the most innovative ideas. A diverse team provides the opportunity for the unique strengths of each team member to be leveraged. The greater the diversity, the greater the breadth of strengths available. So if you can recognize the differences in generations, you can utilize this knowledge to better understand your coworkers and adjust your communication style to foster a more productive relationship with every employee, no matter what their generation. And so what would be the result of that? A stronger, more innovative, more successful enterprise. We're at a point in history in which we have 4 generations all working together at the same time. The ages can span from 17 to 71. So as you can imagine, we're dealing with some pretty significant differences here. Let's make sure we all understand the 4 generations in the workplace today by taking a high-level look at these generations, which are the baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Generation Edge. We're going to talk about key events, and by that, we're talking about those impactful events that you will say, I will always remember when. And these are the types of memories typically take place during our formative years. When told, people recall where they were, who they were with, and even the weather. It was just etched on our generational stamp. So let's begin with the baby boomer generation. Boomers were born between 1946 and 1964. And some of the events that shaped their lives are the Vietnam War, the JFK and Dr. King assassinations, and the civil and women's rights movements. Are there any other events during that time period that we could add to this list? I know personally for me, my aunts and uncles are of this generation, and in listening to them discuss some of the issues they experience in the workplace made me realize how insightful and relevant this topic really is. We're mighty quiet today.
You know, I think about the music. Somehow I always think about the music. I think of the Beatles and, you know, all the new type of music that came out, and still we, you know, listen to it today. But that was this generation, right? If I'm not mistaken, bringing forth, you know, this new, yeah, I don't know, Elvis, you know, new genres of music that still today, you know, we celebrate and sing along and all of that good stuff. So I think culturally too, speaking, it's the historical events and the cultural events, I think, that folks from this generation, you know, remember, and things that resonate with them, and things that we even know, you know, about this generation as well, whether we're part of it or not. You know, we have family members, we have coworkers.
Mm-hmm. And that's interesting you mentioned the music, because that does, you know, that plays a huge part in, you know, our generations. You know, I sit here as a 80s baby, and I'm like, 90s R&B was, you know, to me, you know, the best music ever made.
Oh yes, we could have a whole other presentation on this too, because 70s and 80s for me. Oh,
yes, yes, yes. So then moving on to the next generation, Gen X generation. This generation was born between 1965 and 1981. So Gen Xers are shaped by things like the latchkey kid childhoods, the tearing down of the Berlin Wall, Desert Storm, the birth of MTV, and rising divorce rates. Is there anything else during that generation that would should be added to the key events?
This was the best music generation, though, by the way, Erin. Yeah. Right. And just kidding, right? You know, half in jest, but I think, you know, we do, you know, take into account the cultural impacts, what was going on culturally in terms of music, in terms of, you know, media, and again, the historic events. And this does happen to be my generation, and so I do remember, you know, oh my gosh, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall, you know, things like that. Historically speaking, I can bring that up, and maybe, Erin, that's not going to resonate with you, but somebody closer to my age range, yes, they're going to know exactly what I was talking about. So these are some of the nuances, right, that I think in general we don't think about too much in the workplace, but it's there. It's a type of diversity that's maybe behind the scenes that hopefully, as we proceed through this presentation, and feel free to share your experiences, we just want to raise awareness so that, again, you know, we're helping to collaborate more, right? Empower that collaboration.
Definitely. And I'm personally learning things as well, because I was a bit shocked that MTV was birthed out of this generation. I thought it was a little newer than that.
Yeah.
And then next we'll examine the millennial generation, also known as Gen Y and the next generation. But for today we'll refer to them as millennials, born between 1982 and the early 2000s. Millennials have fast become an influential factor in the workplace with increasing leadership responsibilities. And key events for this generation include 9/11, the internet boom, busy planned lives with helicopter parents, and Columbine. This is my generation, and all of those key points are hitting the nail on the head. Just as we mentioned in the earlier slides, you can remember when, and I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when 9/11 occurred. I do remember the internet boom, going from those slow dial-ups to what we have today. And then the experience of living with a helicopter parent. We were so protected that even if something was going on in our own family, I didn't know about it until I was an adult. So all very, very, very true key points. Yes, Amber, you agree as well. And then experts differ on decades that define the next generation. The generation after the millennials were born. Some say as early as 1995, while others claim it's after 2001. And even though you've probably heard the term Generation Z, many believe the official name is Generation Edge. This generation is now entering the workforce and presents a new challenge for management in terms of communication, workplace environment, and work ethic. Not surprisingly, the next generation is innately reliant on technology, hyper-connected and highly mobile. Some of the very key points we mentioned in the communication presentation 2 weeks ago. Key events for this generation include the Great Recession, 2008, blended families, cultures, and ethnicities, social media, the tech explosion, terrorism and violence in real time. For example, the Sandy Hook, Boston Marathon bombing, and those types of events. Is there anything else that anybody else can think of that's happened during Generation Edge?
My kids are Generation Edge, right? And so just, oh my gosh, being completely connected to their smartphone and social media, it's beyond, and it's even grown, since they were, younger. It just seems like every day the smartphone gets better and they want more of it. They want to be on it more often. And so, I think they also call them Generation Edge because there's like an edginess, they are very hyper aware of, some of the terror, the scary things, I guess, that go on. They're very news savvy. They're very media savvy. They're huge consumers of media. And so they know the news before I do, practically speaking. And again, these are things that kind of impact their worldview, and so just things that we need to keep an eye on, right? And as we employ folks from Generation Edge, okay, right, they are now entering the workforce. These are items that we want to just be aware of, right, in order to maximize their contribution. Absolutely. Yes, very well stated, Amber. A lot of real world trauma, and it has shaped their perception. So I, as a parent, kind of work on that in a different way. As employers, as coworkers and colleagues, I think we want to, take that into account as well.
Yeah, it always amazes me that they're, how socially conscious they are. So all of the even social climate initiatives and, just being better people, they seem to be more aware of that than previous generations from my perspective.
That is true too. That is true too. And very important for employers to take into account. Absolutely. And businesses.
And you have places such as Google who have, altered their work environments prior to COVID, of course, to, welcome and embrace this generation. They don't have the cubicles and offices. Everybody works, in an open space collaboratively. And then they have, fun areas to break out into when they need a break in the middle of the day. It's not that just go, 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 but they have that nice work-life balance that's important to this generation.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Okay.
Laura, take it away.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Erin. Yes, so we're going to change shift gears just a little bit right now, and we'll have you all participate. All of us will participate in this exercise called Your Work Generation, Where Do You Belong? And so it's a bit of a quiz. So hopefully you have a piece of paper, pencil, something to write with, or jot down notes, because I will be asking you some questions. And we're going to find out at the end, do you identify, do you feel like you are part of your quote unquote generation, right? We all know when we were born and which generation technically we are a part of, but depending on where you were born, you may be a cusper, kind of on the edge, or you may work with people, a lot of people from different generations. So you maybe identify in terms of work style, right, with that generation. So we're going to go ahead and get started with these 5 questions. And we'll go to the next slide. So go ahead and jot this down, and feel free to jot down your answers in chat too. I think it's fun and kind of funny and entertaining just to see, where we are, and, sort of enlightening as well. So question number 1, if I have questions on a work task, I prefer to A, leave my boss a voicemail asking for clarification, B, have a face-to-face conversation with my boss, C, Google my question to find out the hack or the answer that solves my problem, or D, why leave my desk when I can just text my boss instead? Okay, A, B, C, or D. And every time I take this quiz, I answer a little bit differently and identify a little bit differently. But oh my gosh, for me personally, okay, Erin is saying D. Erin is big on text. Yeah, she's like, just text me. Voicemail, no. Long email, no. Face-to-face meeting, no. Just text me. Google. I've been using Google quite a bit lately, right? Everybody says, just Google it. I'll tell my kids, they ask me crazy questions, right? Why is the sky blue and things like that? Just Google it, right? So much you can find. But I do have a habit, I think, in a way, of wanting to get clarification from my boss. Either, let's set up a call, let's set up a meeting, a huddle, a check-in, a voicemail. And so it runs the gamut, right? Definitely. Number 2, let's move on. So when it comes to work-life balance, think about work-life balance. Balancing all those, important things in life. A, I want better work-life balance, but I do end up feeling a lot of guilt if I feel I'm neglecting my family or my job. So it's sort of a catch-22. Of course, I want balance, but I have a lot of guilt, trying to find that balance. Somebody's getting neglected, one way or the other. B, my work ethic, forget it. I have a work ethic that is so strong. It requires 100% commitment to my job. So less of a balance and more of 100% work ethic, 100% commitment to work and to my job. C, I love what I do so much, and I gain satisfaction and fulfillment from my contributions at work. So in a sense, that is my balance. Yes, I'm working, but I'm getting so much satisfaction from that work that I almost sometimes don't feel that it is work. D, I will actually leave a job that is too demanding and does not allow for an acceptable, in my mind, work-life balance. Okay, yeah, D. Okay, people who will say, no, you're not providing me the balance, and this is not acceptable for me, for my life, and I'd rather find something else that makes more sense and allows me to balance out, my life, and as well as family and other endeavors, fitness, and everything else. C, I see a couple of C's in here, okay, as well. So again, love runs the gamut. Erin, did you answer your mix of C and D? Okay, I'm just curious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I do need and require, definitely that balance. That said, I do have a work ethic. I don't feel like it lacks, but I do feel that it's very important to have that balance and be able to nurture my family and everything else. So I'm not sure if I guess it's a mix of maybe 2 of these. Let's move on. Okay, so question number 3 is, if I had the choice, I prefer to work A, as part of a team with a focus on achieving a long-range vision, right? Sort of a team sport. I have my role, we have a vision, we're working towards that. B, in a very independent environment where my contributions are recognized and valued. Okay. All right, where my contributions are recognized and valued, but in a more independent, less team oriented environment. C, in a collaborative environment where I am encouraged to reach my goals. Okay, very collaborative. I want to be encouraged. I do have goals, professional, personal as well, and would love, that mentorship, that coaching, that encouragement. D, in an environment that is diverse and inclusive with recognition of the very different contributions that everybody on the team provides. So what are your thoughts? What are the thoughts? A, B, C, D. Okay. Okay, great. I see C and D. I see D. Okay, absolutely. Yeah, you'll see some variety. And I'm trying to think, how do I usually, oh my gosh, I would say all of the above, kind of depending on the day. I might be more of a B person, kind of independent, kind of, working on my projects and everything, but I want those projects to be valued, and not just about me. I want them to contribute. So lots of D's. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to question number 4. When it comes to the use of technology at work, I was brought up with it and I thrive on the challenge of learning new systems and software. That's A. B, I see the value of it from an efficiency standpoint, but I do feel a little overwhelmed by it all. Okay, so sometimes I feel overwhelmed. I know it's important to use. Or C, I look to the future and I'm happy to adapt to the technological changes that continue to present themselves, day in and day out. There's always a new app, there's a new platform, even at work or as a business owner, you want to, use something else, something new. Or D, I feel comfortable with it, okay, technology at work, and prefer information at my fingertips via the internet or via whichever platform that I'm using. I want to have that info at my fingertips. A, B, C, or D. Okay, Erin, definitely. D wants that information at her fingertips. And I see C as well. Yeah, happy to adapt whatever comes down the pike, whatever is new. We want to evolve. We want to always be, especially if we are business owners or managers or we have clients, really in any business role, right? I think it is important to evolve and to leverage what's new and to take advantage of what innovation is out there. So I think I would probably be a C. And an A too. I like to learn new systems and software platforms. Next slide. And this will be our last question. Okay, so hopefully also be taking notes, what your answers are for each of the 5. Okay, so my generation, question number 5, my generation has been unfairly stereotyped. So, I love to steer clear of stereotypes and all of that good stuff. But if there was an unfair stereotype that your generation has been stamped with, would it be A, difficult to manage because we work to live and not live to work, right? I'm working to live for my family. Family is first. I'm not living to work. And so maybe a bit tougher to manage, quote unquote. B, workaholics. People call me a workaholic. It's not true. I love to work, but I'm not a workaholic. Oh my gosh. C, people say that we are tech obsessed and lacking in interpersonal and social skills. What? Oh my gosh, not fair. Tech obsessed and lacking in interpersonal and social skills. D, oh my gosh. And of course, these are stereotypes. These are not, but these are unfair stereotypes. Impatient, lazy, requiring instant gratification. Okay, has your generation been unfairly labeled per se? Oh my gosh, instant credit, nothing's instant. It's going to take time, things like that you hear maybe in, just in passing or things like that, or in the media, right? We hear those unfair stereotypes. So go ahead and, tally up those answers, and we shall move on to our next slide, right? And I say, as human beings, oh my gosh, we can't categorize ourselves, right? We're rich, We're unique. Each one of us is so diverse. Yet in general, okay, if we add up our responses, A, B, C, D, yeah, if you are leaning towards A, you identify, and this doesn't mean that you are part of this generation or born within this generation, but it's important to know that you do identify with Gen X. Okay, you are identifying with Gen X if you are tending towards A. B, if you are identifying, if you have more B's in your answer, if the majority is B, you are identifying as a baby boomer. Okay, believe it or not. And then C's, you are identifying as Generation Edge. Okay, or Generation Z, as we mentioned. And then D, you are identifying as a millennial. Okay, is anybody surprised by their results? Okay, all right, very good. With millennials. Okay, and you identified correctly with your generation, millennials. You're like, okay, yeah, you're the cookie cutter, I guess, or yeah, the ideal, millennial. You're like, yes, yes, and yes. I experienced this, I remember this. This is how I communicate. This is my approach, to work-life balance and to work. And so Erin is the, prototypical, I guess, millennial. And I tend to veer between my own generation, which is, Generation X. And then I'll tend to identify a bit younger with the millennials. I think I'm a little bit on the cusp, but kind of depending on the day, I'll identify with other generations as well. Just, I think, raising my own kids and possibly sometimes working, with an older generation, I'll identify with them as well. So it does vary. But I think, again, the goal here is we are raising awareness on approaches, on communication styles, on comfort levels with technology. So bottom line, we can better leverage the generational diversity that we have, at work. And so we'll keep moving on towards our next slide. And again, yeah, I think, were there any other surprises out there? Just curious to hear. Any surprises, or did people pretty much line up with their generation? Any surprises? Okay, you were an even. Amber is very balanced. Okay, so Amber is a very balanced person, and she identifies across the board. All right, we have millennials. Oh my gosh. And yeah, kind of surprising too, some of the results. You're thinking, wait a minute, I thought, I didn't realize that. And I think, again, bottom line is recognizing and acknowledging the differences in the generations is an important step in the process of effectively working with and managing. If you're in management, or you're a member of a team, it's very important to effectively work within that team comprised of a mix of generations. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at what makes the generations tick, okay, and how, some tactics and some strategies that we can leverage to better relate and manage folks no matter what the generation that they're in. Okay, so the baby boomers, let's review this again. They tend to be very optimistic. They enjoyed, of course, this is generalizations, they enjoyed the prosperity of their traditionalist parents. They grew up in households where they were celebrated and cherished. They tended to be happy kids, and that turned into a real optimistic outlook on life. It was a huge cohort. Okay, it was a huge generation. They were all entering school, the school system, at the same time. And I'm not sure if it's that, but researchers tend to think that is what sort of created a tendency towards teamwork and sharing and, commitment to a mission and to the values of an organization. In fact, as they entered the workforce, they brought in a new form of leadership, leadership by consensus. Okay, so again, that sharing, that having to be part of a team, larger families too, like if you think about it. Okay, and I don't know if smaller homes. Okay, the post-World War II era when, these homes were being built, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, and you had a family of 5 kids, like we are sharing that bathroom. Okay, we are sharing everything. And so this management by consensus, came to be, but they really do tend to be driven by a work ethic, defined by work, very committed to work, very much identifying with work. Okay. And so I guess with these characteristics, how would you interact with a baby boomer? Okay. Yeah. Concept of sharing is quite interesting. How would you react? Any questions? And we can kind of move on to the next slide as you're thinking about, how this would, I guess, inform if you're managing a baby boomer, if you are a baby boomer, if you have baby boomers on your team, let's think about this. Yeah, right. Groupthink. Yeah, groupthink. That's so true. Leadership by consensus can quickly descend into groupthink. And, a lot of the researchers and leaders and academics and, management gurus will say, we definitely want to avoid groupthink sometimes. It can be valuable, but it can also, lead us in directions that are maybe not as creative, as could be, or not as productive as we should be. So it's something to keep an eye on. Yes, we want consensus, we want everyone to agree, we want those committees, right, and we want to vote and so on and so forth, but we also want to maintain creativity and energy and the spontaneity, and kind of be able to, how shall I say, leash that and not put a damper on the creativity and the energy and the motivation that sometimes teams can bring about, if that makes sense. Okay, so very good point, Amber. Managing the baby boomers' work preferences. Let's talk about preferences. Okay, let's talk about preferences so we can know, how to build that bridge, with the baby boomer. And again, the name of the game is leveraging and getting the most that we can out of the diversity that is our workplace. So communication, they prefer it to be personal. They prefer it to be two-way, not one way, not top down or bottom up. They want it to be a two-way communication. Okay. They want to be able to make a difference. They love a work environment that is democratic, where there is recognition, but it's team oriented. Okay. They love to have a vision. If there's not a vision that's very clearly stated, they're feeling uncomfortable. Okay. So they want a very clear vision that everybody is working towards. Okay. As a leader, what they like to see in a leader is somebody who's friendly, right? Somebody who is a people person, somebody, again, who values democracy, and buy-in, and that, consensus. Again, everybody said this, and here's, we're going to vote, or we're going to, kind of manage by that consensus. Turnoffs, things that they don't particularly like, and maybe, a certain bluntness they may consider maybe rude, or if you're not, kind of collaborating with them or having a two-way communication, that may be interpreted as a lack of interest. They don't like political incorrectness. And again, this is from research, right, on the generations at work, or something, a one-upmanship, somebody trying to one up, or be better, again, that consensus is very important. Okay. To a baby, somebody born within this baby boomer generation. So working with baby boomers, I'm going to give us all some tips, right? Why not? We need to appreciate and acknowledge a baby boomer by, I guess, default is probably going to have a lot of work experience, right? And even myself as a Gen X, right? I feel like, oh my gosh, I've been working for a while. I've been in the workplace for a while. So especially with baby boomers, that's, even more years in the workplace. So appreciating and acknowledging the skill and the experience that they have to offer will go a long way, right? It does not hurt to recognize that and appreciate that. Okay, recognize that they are hardworking and career-focused people. So maybe they are the people that want to take on that stretch assignment and do more, right? Why not take advantage of that, but appreciate that, among your baby boomer teammates and employees. That's just part of kind of how they see themselves, right? Hard work, career focus is definitely part of the show. And so I would say, recognize that and, make the most of it. You can value their dedication, their loyalty, and the life experience that they bring to the job while offering respect for the contributions that they make to the organization. So we don't want to call them, with a lack of respect, workaholics in a way that lowers the value of what they're bringing, right? Let's value what they are bringing to the workplace. And that is lots of experience, lots of skill, and a dedication to work. Okay. Any questions? Any questions? We can move on to, yeah, there you go. Absolutely. Absolutely. Baby boomers, maybe technology, but yeah, reading a map, lots of respect, right? Different technologies that were leveraged so much. And again, I almost feel like maybe I'm a cusper. I'm not sure. I remember, my early career visiting clients and definitely using that Thomas Guide map, right? And I don't bring that up too often, but it is something that probably, folks within my generation or older definitely remember. And of course, right now it's all Google, it's all, it's all apps. And so I think it's beautiful to be able to, kind of have the prior knowledge, but then also be able to leverage, the technologies that are being used today. Gen Xers, let's move on. So Gen Xers in general, right? In general, a bit skeptical, very independent. It's estimated that 40% of Gen X kids were latchkey kids. So they grew up very independent, skeptical, and not a huge fan of authority. Okay, so because of their childhoods, it's important to build trust with Gen Xers and earn respect as an authority figure. So I'm not sure if, during the 70s, more and more people, moms were going to work and things like that. And it's before there was, great infrastructure, after school programs, things like that. It was kind of predating all of that. It was a big shift in society. So in general, again, 40%, up to 40% of the Gen X kids were latchkey kids, were coming home to an empty house and kind of just having to fend for themselves to a certain extent. So because they had to fend for themselves in general, and again, these are, big generalities, they do have a strong desire to make individual contributions. They can be good team players, but they are also very strong individual contributors, if that makes sense. And they want their input, right? Like we all do, I guess, to be valued and rewarded. Okay. For whatever paradoxical reason, maybe again, they were latchkey kids, they highly value family and work-life balance. Okay. And I can, definitely take it from me. I highly value being able to balance, kind of home and work life. And so, again, my own experience is, a career that can allow me to do that is very, very important. And for my director to understand, right? And my director has, a family as well. And so I appreciate, that we can talk about that and that we can think about that balance, right? So I guess with these characteristics in mind, how would you interact or how would you manage, a Gen Xer? What would be some of your tactics? And yes, let's move on and I'll talk about, some of the communication styles, preferred work environment, essentially in terms of communication, they love direct and straightforward communication. So I would say be direct and straightforward. Okay, don't mince words, but avoid using buzzwords, right? They don't need a ton of FaceTime, right? In general, we don't need, again, that goes to the independence. We do like to communicate electronically. Okay, email is fine, voicemail is fine, text is fine. It's all good. And again, it's kind of, we don't need a lot of one-on-one or hand holding to a certain extent. We like to kind of work and get our work done and then deliver it. And so I would say keep that in mind. In terms of work environment, we do It needs to be flexible. We do like it to be fun. Why not? Informal, doesn't have to be too formal, but we love that autonomy, the ability to get things done, as well as, you know, an environment or a culture that encourages growth and development. We like leaders who are competent. Okay, so we want to make sure that our leader, and this is funny, this is a little bit of a nuance, that our leader knows what they are doing. Okay, that our leader has the information. We want to know that our leader, our manager, director, and if you're a business owner, you know, keep this in mind with your clients. Okay, that you have the information, you are competent. Okay, but they're going to want you to be flexible. They're going to want you to be, you know, somewhat of a mentor, a guide, you know, bottom line, somebody who's results oriented and very genuine. Things that Gen X don't like, you know, is kind of wasting time, using time poorly. Okay, lack of efficiency. Okay, schmoozing, bureaucracy, incompetence, anything that kind of slows down the efficiency of a Gen Xer is going to be sort of, I guess, an irritant to them. Okay. Any other thoughts about managing Gen Xers or questions? You know, questions for us. Again, this is a very independent generation. And again, on a positive, I would say let's take advantage of that independence, right? With certain assignments and stretch assignments. Okay. And as business owners, you know, let's keep that in mind as well. Let's move on though. In the interest of time, we'll move on to, and I think we talked about this slide, the do-it-yourself attitude, right? Respect for family time and healthy work balance, and maintaining that flexibility is super important. So now we're going to move on, and Erin is going to share with us a little bit more about millennials in the workplace. Erin?
Thanks, Laura. So again, we've mentioned the helicopter parent, and by a helicopter parent, we mean a parent who hovers over a child and is very, very involved in their child's life. So millennials, such as myself, grew up as a very protected generation, which is the exact opposite of a Gen Xer. So while Gen Xers like to fly solo, millennials get excited about fellowship that takes place at work. They crave community and a sense of belonging. We know millennials like to use technology and stay connected 24/7. So it's really no surprise that social connectivity has always been important to this generation. And now they are bringing this inclusive new style with them into the workplace. Not only do they expect constant collaboration with bosses and colleagues, they are also looking to connect informally and develop real friendships with their coworkers. I know for me personally, some of my closest friends to this day, I met from work. But because of our innate love for cutting edge technology, we want it everywhere we go, including the workplace. Many millennials value the way technology can help them stay connected constantly and collaborate with colleagues to accomplish more. With these characteristics in mind, how would you interact with or manage a millennial? Technology is a big part of the DNA. Recognize the ways they like to communicate. Become a trusted culture advisor and tell it like it is. Don't sugarcoat things, just as with the previous generation. They want and can accept corrective feedback. They will do their best when they feel connected to the people who manage and work with them. Interact with them often so they feel you are helping them to succeed. Be encouraging. They like to know that you are in their corner. And again, these are all, you know, good points and working with millennials, but let's take a look at the summary of some millennial preferences. Yes, exactly, Laura. Teamwork is big to the millennial generation. So in managing the millennials' work preferences, communication, be positive and encouraging, work together, guide them to help them reach their goals or finish assignments. And the best way to reach a millennial is text or via their mobile phone. I repeatedly stated during our communication workshop a couple of weeks ago how I would certainly prefer an IM or a text to you picking up the phone and we have to have a meeting or a whole conversation. The work environment. State-of-the-art technology should be used in the workplace. The environment is future and achievement-oriented. It should also be customizable, allowing them to work with the technology they love. And of course, they like lots of feedback, so check in often. From their leader, they want to be coached to their goals and help them stay on track. Be motivational and supportive, keeping a two-way communication stream open. Collaboration is key for this generation. And some of their dislikes, millennials do not like cynicism or bitterness. So keep those kind of comments to yourself. And they want to be treated like your coworker, not your child. And they thrive with consistency. Okay, did I miss something here?
There you go.
Skip too far ahead. Okay, so working with millennials, appreciate they are tech savvy and adapt intuitively to new technology. Recognize the value in their ability to multitask and know that they are often impatient and require instant gratification. Value that they are creative, productive, and achievement oriented. While instant gratification is needed by millennials, they can also be viewed negatively. And it can also be interpreted as someone who is tenacious and who won't settle for the first answer that pops up on Google. They may also be difficult to satisfy, but in business, that's not always a bad thing. So now we're going to wrap up the millennials and move on to Generation Edge. The Gen Edger is resilient and resourceful, inclusive and accepting of differences, unique and celebrates individuality, poised and self-confident, committed to the belief that there is no right way to do things or be, and they are entrepreneurial. The parental safety net provided to baby boomers, millennials, has been dismantled by the Gen Xers' parents living through challenges from the recession. So the edge of this generation was born out of necessity. They are learning to form an identity through an environment offering uncertainty and complexity. They've had to grow up fast and are being taught to be critical thinkers. They are resilient. The days of self-entitlement are no more. They are not expecting for making it in the real world to be easy, and making a difference in the world is important to them. In managing the Gen Edger's work preference, when communicating with the Gen Edger, be realistic and open-minded. They respond to visuals and are tech obsessed, which for some means they may lack interpersonal communication skills, but they are eager online learners and respond to training. In their work environment, they excel in being tech confident, where technology is integrated into processes and supports innovation. They embrace diversity and inclusion, believing a richer global perspective and wider social circle will enhance their ability to learn and grow, as well as positively impact job results. As their leader, you want to model maturity and professionalism. Connect with them consistently, using tech tools to help them meet job expectations, and they require less helicoptering. Give them a balance of guided preparation on the job. They don't like exclusivity. Status symbols are just not important to them. Invasiveness, they have grown up with the keen awareness that this digital age tracks them and do not buy into cultural norms of conformity. So when working with Gen Edgers, respect their communication to diversity and inclusion in their lives and workplace, appreciate their ability to cope, manage, and move on from difficulties, recognize their quest for cutting-edge technology and their ability to utilize it to your benefit, and know they need guidance in interpersonal relationships outside of technology. This is the generation that watched their parents struggle through the Great Recession of 2008. In fact, this generation may be embracing some of the values and mindsets of boomers through hard work and financial frugality, along with the tech-savvy forward thinking of more recent generations. Laura, I'll pass it back to you now.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Erin. hopefully, people are getting a sense of, again, the nuances that each of, and the benefits, right? The positive benefits that each of these generations brings to the workplace. I think as long as we're a bit more aware of the positives, right, while avoiding anything that maybe we should be avoiding, right, in terms of communication styles, I think, again, we can create a more positive, a more collaborative, and at the end of the day, a more productive work environment. Now, CUSPers, I just wanted to define CUSPer. I think we talked about it just informally before. CUSPers refer to people born close to the dividing line between generations, or those right on the cusp. So if you were born in 1963, 64, 65, right, you're kind of in a way possibly straddling, two generations. You have your foot in two generational worlds in a sense. And so most cuspers do have an ability naturally to identify with multiple generations and beliefs. I was just curious to see if there was anybody here who might be a cusper. Who might
I'm technically a cusper, being an 82, but it's funny that I'm aligned so, directly with millennials.
Yeah, again, you are the prototypical millennial, but you could, maybe that's why we get along so well, right? You have empathy for me and my generation and everything. And so I think you have that awareness at least, potentially. Anybody else? And I agree 100%, Amber. I think we can learn a lot from Gen Z about creating a more inclusive, diverse, empathetic workplace for all. They really are sensitized, right? To a lot of different things, different struggles, and they bring a lot of awareness that's important to know about, right? So as employers, again, as business owners, let us be aware of, of the value of each generation. So, at the end of the day, and this is a quote from the director of the Career and Professional School at Indiana University, at the end of the day, we all have to coexist in the organizational culture. So understanding what drives each generation is the first step towards professional peace and productivity. And I think it goes without saying, but it should never be an us against them. Oh, us and those millennials, sometimes you hear. So it's not an us against them generational mindset, since obviously we're all in this together. We're all working together. It's important to define expectations and to take some time to consider how you can learn from each other and play well in the multi-generational sandbox. So I think we have to constantly ask ourselves, how can we come together to make this an awesome place to work, right? How can we come together? How can we do better to collaborate well with all generations, right? Let's think about that and discuss for a moment. I guess, Aaron, do you have any suggestions, or anybody here? And I know we're wrapping up. We're really, really, close at the end of time. So I'm going to ask folks to maybe just put that into the chat, and I'm going to pass the baton back to Aaron.
Thanks, Laura. And we did have an activity here, but for the sake of time, we will go ahead and move forward because I know you all have a raffle to complete. But after taking a moment to review how best to collaborate with across generations, in your mission to create a more powerful workplace, you should always keep in mind these principles. Instead of taking communications as a sign of disrespect, skip the assumptions and change your communication lens. Let's assume positive intentions, which will allow you to listen generously and speak with greater clarity and effectiveness. Be intentional about embracing generational diversity. Keep the communication lines open by tailoring your communication method to match the individual style of the coworker, so we can approach our differences rather than seeing them as barriers. Those were also good points from the empowering collaboration. Overcoming workplace conflict and the communication workshops we previously completed. And then remember, the greater the diversity, the greater the breadth of strengths available. Open the communication lines so we are able to recognize each other's strengths and use those strengths to our team's advantage. And then finally, use the information you learned today to ask, how can I be more effective? Share what you learned today to help everyone communicate effectively across generations. And looking at these principles and thinking about everything we learned today, what could you start to apply to your everyday environment? And any changes you may think of that you would like to see happen in your own department. So we are going to go ahead and wrap up. DeVry University is here as an educational resource for anyone that may be thinking about continuing your education. But if you have any questions on the programs, how we cater to working adults, and to learn more about the opportunities with us, do not hesitate at all to connect with me or Laura. We are here to help you all in those next steps and answer any questions you may have offline about today's presentation or any of our previous ones. I'll pass it back to you all.
Thank you guys so much. Such a good presentation. I love that ending quote. You know, that's so encouraging about how we can thrive in our professional workspace. That's so, so helpful. I don't see that we have any other questions. I know I see one more comment right there from Frances, which is a good point. She suggested 4, ask myself how I can be more effective. I think that's super helpful as well. So yeah, thank you guys so much for participating. We did do the raffle for the winner of those 2 Diamondbacks tickets. And that's actually going to Frances. So congratulations, Frances. I'll go ahead and send you an email transferring those tickets over to you. And yeah, like we said at the beginning of the webinar, we'll be giving, we'll be sending out that post-event email with Erin and Laura's contact info. So please, if you guys would like to connect, have any follow-up conversations or anything like that, please feel free to use their contact info or get connected with us. Laura, Erin, any other closing remarks to close out our time?
Oh my gosh, huge thanks. Yeah, huge thanks to you for your time, for your attention. We love putting on these 1-hour workshops. Just hopefully it was beneficial, right? And raising awareness about this particular diversity in the workplace, and that we can just all, you know, keep making the most and collaborating more. Erin?
Yes, and every time we do these presentations, I learn so much more, especially from the engagement and getting other people's perspectives. And yes, thank you so much. Frances, they do send out the recording, so please, please, please share, because this is a topic that is not often discussed sometimes in the workplace.
For sure. Yeah, thank you guys so much, ladies. And for those attending, we also do want to encourage you, we'll have another webinar attached to the series with Laura and Erin in a couple weeks on the 4th of August. So we're so excited for that as well. Be sure to sign up. In the meantime, like we said, we'll have that contact info out. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And we hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.